We won. Mr. Stark. We won, Mr. Stark.
New mask. Same task.
Welcome to Mr. Screen. Tony Stark becoming Doctor Doom still leaves everyone with many thoughts. After all, how did this happen? Based on the events of the MCU, I bring this part of the story for us to theorize. Without further ado, let's get to the point. Stark's legacy. Tony Stark's death after the final battle against Thanos was a devastating blow to the world. The hero, who had sacrificed everything to save humanity, was celebrated as a martyr, and his legacy was immortalized in monuments, museums, and in the collective memory of the Avengers. But in a hidden dimension, far from the eyes of the living, something dark was moving. In an alternate timeline, Tony Stark was resurrected by unknown forces. This version of Tony did not wake up in the same universe he left behind, but in a place where power and control were the only law. Amidst the chaos, Stark was confronted by an ancient and malevolent presence who offered him power beyond anything he had ever known. Disillusioned and lost after his resurrection, Tony embraced the power, merging his technological genius with the dark magic that this entity offered. He became Doctor Doom, a sovereign who sought not only control, but total domination over all realities. The return of Doom. Months after the events involving the multiverse and the confrontation with Doctor Strange, Peter Parker, Spider-Man tried to adjust to the new reality. The world had changed, and after the battle against the alternate versions of himself and his villains, Peter was more vigilant than ever. While patrolling the streets of New York, Peter began to notice strange anomalies, areas where time seemed distorted, where technology worked in inexplicable ways, and most alarmingly, where people and objects disappeared without a trace. These anomalies were just the prelude of what was to come. One night, while Peter was investigating one of these phenomena in an abandoned warehouse, he was confronted by a figure that seemed familiar, but at the same time, completely unfamiliar. The figure was wrapped in black armor, with silver details, and a cape that moved as if it had a life of its own. "Who are you?" Peter asked, already in combat stance. The figure laughed, a cold metallic sound that echoed through the warehouse. "You still don't recognize me, Parker. I thought your spider sense was sharper." Peter stood still, his heart beating fast. He knew that voice, but that was impossible. "Tony," Peter stammered, unable to believe what he was seeing. "It can't be. I'm not the man you knew anymore," the figure replied, removing the mask that hid his face. It was Tony Stark, but with a look Peter had never seen before, a look of absolute power mixed with coldness. "I'm Doctor Doom now." Clash of Masters. Peter froze, his mind trying to process what was before him. How could Tony Stark, the man who had been his mentor and one of the world's greatest heroes, have become the villain who now stood before him? "This is a trick, isn't it?" Peter said, taking a step back. "What happened to you, Tony? How is this possible?" Doom smiled, a smile that held no trace of warmth. "I came back from a place of no hope, Parker. A place where I was forced to reevaluate everything. Magic and technology merged within me in a way you cannot understand. I was resurrected, and with it came a new understanding and a new purpose." Peter shook his head, refusing to believe it. "The Tony I knew would never become this. You taught me to be better, to fight for what is right, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. I may have been naive before, but not anymore," Doom replied, his voice low and dangerous. "The world needs a strong leader, someone who can ensure order at any cost. That was Stark's mistake. He believed morality was a limit, but now I see that it is a weakness." "This is madness, Tony," Peter shouted, his spider senses alerting him to the impending danger. "This is not who you are." But before Peter could react, Doom raised a hand, conjuring a wave of energy that threw the young hero against the wall with crushing force. Peter tried to stand up, but the force of the impact left him dizzy. "Parker, you have no idea what is about to happen," Doom said, slowly approaching. "I'm not here to argue. I am here to prepare you for the real enemy. You are all too weak, stuck in obsolete concepts of good and evil. When the real danger arrives, there will be no place for those concepts. Peter struggled to his feet, his eyes fixed on Tony. You need to stop this, Tony. If there is a greater threat, we can face it together, but not like this. Doom just stared at Peter for a moment before shaking his head. You still don't get it, do you? I'm not the Tony you knew anymore. I'm Doom, and you're not ready. With a wave of his hand, Doom opened a portal that sucked him into another dimension, leaving Peter alone and hurt, but not defeated. The Avengers assemble. After the confrontation with Doom, Peter knew he needed help. He immediately contacted the remaining Avengers, Natasha Romanoff, Bruce Banner, Sam Wilson, and other heroes who were still together after the countless battles they had faced. Gathered in one of the Avengers' old hideouts, Peter explained everything that had happened. He's not the Tony we knew, Peter insisted, seeing the incredulous expressions of his colleagues. He's more powerful than ever, and he's convinced that only he can save the world from whatever it may be. And what does he want? Natasha asked, her eyes calculating the possibilities. To take over the world. To destroy everything. I'm not sure, Peter replied, his voice tinged with uncertainty. But he said we're all too weak to face what's coming. If Stark really has become what you described, he's a threat, Bruce said thoughtfully. We need to find out more about what he's planning and how to stop him. The Avengers agreed to investigate the situation, with Peter leading the search for more information about the new Doctor Doom and his intentions. They knew the coming battle would be like no other, and the thought of facing someone who had once been one of the world's greatest heroes weighed heavily on their minds. The relentless defeat. Days later, the Avengers located Doom in an old abandoned laboratory in Latveria, where he was gathering his forces and building magic-infused war machines. Knowing they didn't have much time, they decided to strike before he was fully prepared. The plan was simple. Go in, disable his defenses, and capture him, in the hopes of restoring Tony's sanity. But as soon as they arrived at the scene, they realized how unprepared they were. Doom was waiting for them. Combining his superior intelligence with mystical power, he proved unbeatable. His defenses were impenetrable, and his attacks were devastating. Within minutes, the Avengers were overwhelmed, one by one. Bruce tried to transform into the Hulk, but Doom used a spell to control his transformation, leaving him trapped in an intermediate form, unable to fight at full strength. Natasha tried to use her espionage skills to infiltrate and disarm the defenses, but Doom predicted her every move, capturing her with ease. Sam Wilson, in his new identity as Captain America, attacked with everything he had, but was quickly neutralized by an energy field. Peter, the last to fall, fought with everything he had, but Doom effortlessly overcame him. In a last desperate attack, Peter tried to convince Tony that there was still hope, that he could redeem himself. But Doom was adamant. You still don't understand, Doom said, lifting Peter by the neck. I'm here to save the world, but not in the way you imagine. And if that means destroying you so you can be rebuilt stronger, then so be it. With a wave of his hand, Doom threw Peter against a wall, knocking him out cold. With all the Avengers defeated, Doom stood over them, his gaze cold and calculating. You are still too weak for what is to come, he said calmly. Consider this a lesson. I am the future, and when true darkness comes, I will be the only one capable of facing it. Without another word, Doom disappeared into a portal, leaving the Avengers lying unconscious. A new awakening when Peter awoke, he was in the Avengers' safe house, surrounded by his wounded comrades. Despite his defeats, he couldn't help but think about Doom's words. What could this threat he feared so much be? And how could they face it when they couldn't even face Tony? As they recovered, the Avengers began to plan their next move. They knew that Doom was more powerful than any enemy they had ever faced, and that they needed more strength, more allies to confront him. Peter, however, couldn't help but feel a weight on his heart. Seeing Tony Stark, the man he admired, turn into a villain was a devastating blow. But at the same time, he knew there was something more behind Tony's transformation. Something they didn't yet fully understand. We will find him again, Peter told the others, his voice full of determination. And next time, we will be ready. The Avengers nodded, knowing that the battle against Doctor Doom was far from over. With the threat of a new darkness on the horizon, they knew they needed to prepare for the fight of their lives. The true enemy. As the Avengers regrouped, Doom continued his preparations. He knew the heroes would return, stronger, more determined. But he also knew that they were not the true enemy. The true threat was approaching, a force that not even his vast powers could face alone. Deep within the multiverse, ancient and powerful entities were beginning to awaken. They had sensed the disruption caused by Doom's use of dark magic and were preparing to take action. These entities, known as the Dark Watchers, were beings who existed to balance chaos and order, and now with Doom threatening the balance of the multiverse, they were ready to act. Doom, aware of his imminent arrival, began gathering allies, not to dominate them, but to prepare for the final battle he knew was coming. He trusted no one, but he understood that to face what was coming, he would need all the help he could get. The rise of Doom. The Dark Watch began sending emissaries to the different realities, trying to prevent the merging of worlds that Doom was about to cause. Their warnings echoed throughout the ends of the multiverse, but few dared to face Doom directly. Meanwhile, Doom consolidated his power, dominating realities and shaping them in his image. He increasingly distanced himself from the man who had once been Tony Stark. He saw himself as the ultimate savior, the one who would sacrifice everything to save the multiverse from imminent destruction. In his mind, he was not a villain, but the only one capable of making the difficult decisions necessary to save existence. He believed that absolute power was justified if the end goal was noble, even if the path was dark. The return of the Avengers. After months of preparation, the Avengers, now strengthened and with new allies, were ready to face Doom again. Peter, now leading the team, was determined to find a way to bring Tony back, or at least stop him from causing more destruction. The final battle was intense and brutal. Doom, at his full power, faced the Avengers and their allies with devastating fury. But this time, the Avengers were ready. They had trained, studied Doom's weaknesses, and were determined not to fail. Peter, using everything he had learned, confronted Doom directly. He tried one last time to reach the man who had once been his mentor, trying to break Dr. Doom's mask and find Tony Stark behind it. "Tony, please stop this," Peter shouted, dodging a devastating attack. "You're better than this. You don't have to be a tyrant to save the world." Doom hesitated for a moment, a split second that gave Peter hope. But soon, the cold, merciless gaze returned. "There is no more Tony Parker. Only Doom," he replied, casting a spell that nearly knocked Peter down. But before the final blow could be struck, something unexpected happened. A powerful presence, neither one of the Avengers nor Doom, manifested itself. It was one of the Dark Watchers, who had arrived to stop the battle. "This conflict is futile," the Watcher said, his voice echoing across the battlefield. "The true threat is approaching, and none of you are prepared." Doom turned to the Watcher, his expression hardening. "I am the only preparation this universe needs." The Watcher laughed, the sound that seemed to resonate in every dimension at once. "You have no idea what is coming, Doom. Neither you nor the Avengers. This is only the beginning, the dark horizon." With those words, the Dark Watcher disappeared, leaving the Avengers and Doom stunned. The battle was over, but the sense of victory was absent. Instead, a sense of deep dread settled over them all. Doom, though powerful, could not ignore the warning. He had underestimated what was at stake. For the first time since his resurrection, he felt a glimmer of doubt. Peter, wounded and exhausted, watched Doom from afar. Even after everything, he still believed that Tony could be saved, but now there was no certainty. "This is not over, Parker," Doom said before opening a new portal. "I fought to save this world from destruction, but it seems that there are greater forces at play. When the time comes, will you be ready?" "I say this because I will be." Doom disappeared, leaving Peter and the Avengers behind. In time, they would recover and prepare for what was to come, but the shadow of Doom and the unknown threat of the Dark Watchers would loom over them. As Peter watched the horizon, he knew that the real battle was yet to come. Doom had won, but not because he was invincible, but because they were all still too weak to face what was to come. The final battle would be different, and they would need to be ready. And so, the world prepared for what could be the greatest threat it had ever faced, with Dr. Doom not as the ultimate villain, but perhaps as the only possible savior on the dark horizon that was approaching. The hidden threat deep within the multiverse, an ancient and powerful shadow began to stir, awakened by Doom's actions. It was a threat not just to a single universe, but to all that existed. And while Doom prepared himself, believing that he was the only salvation, the truth was much more complex. The Avengers, Dr. Doom, and all the forces of good and evil would need to unite, not only to save their worlds, but to preserve their very existence. The war was just beginning, and the true enemy was still in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. So these are our theoretical points. What do you think of all this? Don't forget to leave a comment with your opinion, click the like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. I'm Mr. Screen and see you soon. Bye.